I was still in my hospital gown when I walked into my own house and found my son and daughter-in-law with a realtor, signing papers to sell my home. They looked at me like they'd seen a ghost. "Mom, you're supposed to be in intensive care," my son stammered. What they didn't know was that I already knew everything. Their plans to put me in a nursing home, sell my house, and take all my money. But that night, when they broke into my safe looking for the deed, they found something that changed everything. Something that made my daughter-in-law collapse to the floor crying and my son beg for forgiveness. I'm so glad you're here. If you're watching this video, please like and subscribe to my channel and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. My story of betrayal and justice is just beginning. My name is Martha Wilson. I'm 68 years old, and until 3 months ago, I thought I had a normal, happy family. My husband Robert passed away 5 years ago after 42 wonderful years together. We had one son, Michael, who married Lisa 7 years ago. I always thought Lisa was a bit distant, but I tried my best to welcome her into our family. Michael is a high school science teacher, and Lisa works as a real estate agent. They live in an apartment about 20 minutes away from my house. After Robert died, I stayed in our family home, a beautiful 2-story house in a nice neighborhood that we had paid off 15 years ago. It's not a mansion, but it's in a good area where property values keep rising. I love my garden, my kitchen where I've cooked thousands of family meals, and the memories that fill every corner. This house is my anchor, my safe place. I've always been independent. I still drive, do all my own shopping, and keep the house clean. I volunteer at the local library twice a week and have a small group of close friends I meet for coffee every Thursday. My health has been good, despite the normal challenges of getting older. Michael and Lisa visit for dinner most Sundays. During these dinners, I noticed that Lisa had started asking strange questions about the house. "This neighborhood has really become valuable, hasn't it, Martha?" she would say while helping me wash dishes. "Have you thought about downsizing? This house is so big for just one person," she'd mention casually. I didn't think much of it at first. After all, she was in real estate, so property values were naturally on her mind. Michael would sometimes join in, talking about how maintaining a house was so much work and how apartments were easier living. But I always brushed it off, telling them I was perfectly happy where I was. Then, about 3 months ago, I noticed something odd. Michael started offering to handle my finances. "Mom, you should let me help with your bills and investments," he said during one Sunday dinner. "Dad left everything in pretty good shape, but we should make sure it's all properly managed." "I've been managing just fine," I told him, perhaps a bit sharply. Robert had taught me everything about our finances, and I'd been handling them without any problems for 5 years. "But what if something happens to you?" Lisa chimed in. "You live alone. What if you fell and couldn't reach the phone?" That was the beginning of a campaign. Each week, they'd bring up another reason why I should let them take over my finances, or why I might be better off in a community with people my age. They brought brochures from assisted living facilities, telling me how nice they were, with activities and care staff. "But I don't need assistance," I would protest. "I'm completely independent." They would exchange looks when they thought I wasn't watching, looks of frustration and impatience. One evening, after they left, I found Lisa's notebook on my coffee table. She'd forgotten it, and when I picked it up to put it aside until their next visit, it fell open. What I saw made my blood run cold. It was a list with numbers, estimates for what my house could sell for, calculations of my savings and investments, and notes about different nursing homes with their costs. At the bottom was a simple equation: house sale, plus investments, nursing home costs, remaining funds. I quickly took pictures of the pages with my phone before putting the notebook back exactly where I had found it. When Lisa called frantically the next day saying she had left her work notebook at my house, I told her I had found it and would give it to her on their next visit. She seemed enormously relieved. "Don't look through it," she laughed nervously. "Just boring work stuff." "Of course not," I assured her. but my mind was racing. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about those calculations, about the way they had been pushing me to give up my independence. The numbers in her notebook made it clear. They weren't concerned about my well-being. They were calculating their inheritance, how much they could get if they put me away somewhere and sold my house. For the first time in my life, I felt afraid of my own family. My own son, who I had raised with all the love in my heart, was plotting with his wife to take everything from me and lock me away. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was right there in Lisa's handwriting. I needed to be smart. I needed a plan, because one thing was certain. I wasn't going to let them steal my life from me without a fight. The discovery of Lisa's notebook was just the beginning. I decided I needed to know exactly what they were planning, so I became more observant, more careful around them. I started keeping a small recorder in my pocket during their Sunday visits, something my husband had given me years ago for recording bird songs in the garden. Now it would serve a different purpose. The very next Sunday, my suspicions were confirmed when they thought I was in the kitchen preparing dessert. "Mom seems more resistant than we expected," Michael said in a low voice. "She's not going to just hand over power of attorney," Lisa replied. "We need to be more aggressive. Has she had her annual checkup yet?" "Next week," Michael said. "I'm driving her." "Good. Talk to Dr. Reynolds beforehand. Tell him about how she's been forgetting things, how you're worried about her decision-making. If we can get him to document some cognitive concerns, we have a much stronger case." I nearly dropped the pie I was carrying. They were going to lie to my doctor to try to declare me incompetent. I managed to compose myself before walking back into the dining room, smiling as if I hadn't heard a word. But inside, I was shaking. After they left, I immediately called Dr. Reynolds' office and changed my appointment to a different doctor in the practice. I'd been seeing Dr. Reynolds for 15 years, but now I couldn't trust him if Michael got to him first. I also called my friend Eleanor, who had been a legal secretary for 40 years before retiring. "Eleanor, what does someone need to get power of attorney over a parent?" I asked her. "Well, either the parent willingly signs it over, or they'd need to prove you're not competent to make your own decisions. That usually requires medical documentation and a court hearing. Why do you ask?" I told her everything. The notebook, the conversation I had overheard. Eleanor was silent for a long moment. "Martha, this is serious. You need to protect yourself, legally and financially." The next day, Eleanor drove me to see her former boss, a lawyer named James Patterson who specialized in elder law. He was a serious man in his 60s with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Unfortunately, what you're describing isn't uncommon," he said after I explained my situation. "Many elderly people face financial exploitation, and sadly, often from family members." "What can I do?" I asked. "First, we need to secure your assets. Do you have a current will?" I did. Robert and I had updated our wills every few years, with the last update being just before his death. Good. Next, I recommend we set up a revocable trust for your major assets, including the house. We'll name a trusted friend as successor trustee, not your son. This makes it much harder for anyone to access these assets without your consent. Over the next 2 weeks, I met with Mr. Patterson several times. We created a new estate plan that would protect me from my son's schemes. I named Eleanor as my successor trustee, and we set up a financial power of attorney that would only take effect if 2 separate doctors determined I was incapacitated. I also wrote a new medical directive, removing Michael as my medical decision-maker and replacing him with Eleanor. During this time, Michael called several times, asking why I had changed doctors and offering to reschedule my appointment with Dr. Reynolds. "I'm fine with the new doctor," I told him. "Dr. Reynolds always seemed rushed. Dr. Patel takes more time with me." "But, Mom, Dr. Reynolds knows your history," he insisted. "My medical records were transferred. Don't worry about it." I could hear the frustration in his voice, but he didn't push further. The most difficult part was keeping up appearances during their Sunday visits. I smiled and nodded as they continued to bring up assisted living communities, showing me glossy brochures of smiling seniors playing bingo and eating in fancy dining rooms. "Look how nice this one is, Martha," Lisa would say. "And it's only 20 minutes from our place. We could visit all the time." "That's nice, dear, but I'm happy here," I would reply, watching the flash of annoyance cross her face. One Sunday in May, I noticed Michael lingering near my home office while Lisa kept me busy in the kitchen, asking complicated questions about a recipe. I excused myself, saying I needed to use the bathroom, but instead quietly walked to my office. I found Michael rifling through my desk drawers. "Looking for something?" I asked calmly. He jumped, nearly knocking over my desk lamp. "Mom, I was just looking for that photo of Dad from his fishing trip. Remember that big trout he caught?" "Those albums are in the living room bookshelf. They always have been." Right. I got confused. After they left, I checked my desk thoroughly. My house deed was missing from its folder. I immediately called Mr. Patterson. "They can't do anything with just the deed," he assured me. "Since we've already transferred the house into the trust, that deed is essentially outdated. The house is protected." Still, the fact that they had stolen from me, my own son, broke my heart. I cried that night, mourning the loss of the loving relationship I thought we had. When had Michael changed? Was it Lisa's influence, or had he always been this way and I just hadn't seen it? The next shock came when I checked my main bank account and discovered that $5,000 was missing. I immediately called the bank. "Yes, Mrs. Wilson, your son came in with a withdrawal slip. He said you were ill and needed the funds for medical expenses. He had ID and your account number, and he's listed as an authorized person on the account." I had added Michael to my account years ago in case of emergency. Now he was using that access to steal from me. I went to the bank immediately and removed him from all my accounts, then transferred most of my money to a new account at a different bank that Mr. Patterson had helped me set up. When Michael called a few days later asking about the bank changes, I played dumb. "What changes, dear? I just moved some money into a CD for better interest rates. The bank representative suggested it during my last visit." "Mom, you should talk to me before making financial decisions." "Why? I've been managing my money since before you were born." I could almost hear him grinding his teeth in frustration. The situation escalated when I received a call from a nursing home, Sunny Pines Assisted Living. "Mrs. Wilson, we're just calling to confirm your tour scheduled for next Wednesday. Your son said you're very interested in our memory care unit." "I never scheduled any tour," I said firmly, "and I don't need memory care." "Oh, I see. Your son Michael seemed quite certain. He's already submitted an application on your behalf and paid the assessment fee." I was speechless. They were moving faster than I had anticipated. They weren't just planning anymore. They were actively taking steps to have me committed to a nursing home. That night, I called Eleanor in a panic. "They're trying to put me in a home. What if they try to force me? What if they get Dr. Reynolds to say I'm not competent?" "Martha, calm down. They can't just drag you away. You've had a clean bill of health from Dr. Patel. We've set up all the legal protections. But maybe you should consider staying with me for a while, just until we get this sorted out." I was reluctant to leave my home. It felt like letting them win. But Eleanor was right. I packed a small suitcase with essentials and moved to her guest room the next day. I didn't tell Michael where I was going, just left a message saying I was visiting an old friend for a few days and would call him when I got back. Almost immediately, my phone was flooded with texts and calls from Michael, each more frantic than the last. "Mom, where are you?" "Which friend are you visiting?" "Why didn't you tell me you were going somewhere?" "I'm worried about you. Please call me back." I answered briefly, saying only that I was fine and would be home in a few days. This seemed to make him even more agitated. From Eleanor's house, I continued to monitor my finances and make preparations. Mr. Patterson helped me document everything: the stolen deed, the unauthorized bank withdrawal, the nursing home application. We were building a case, though I still hoped it wouldn't come to legal action against my own son. On the 5th day of my stay with Eleanor, I received a terrifying phone call from my neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins. "Martha, there are people at your house. They're moving things out. I thought you should know." "What? Who is it?" "Your son and his wife, I think, and some other people. They have a moving truck." My heart nearly stopped. They were emptying my house. I told Mrs. Jenkins to call the police immediately, reporting a break-in. Then Eleanor and I jumped in her car and raced to my home. When we arrived, the scene was chaos. A large moving truck was in my driveway, and people were carrying out my furniture, my paintings, even the grandfather clock that had been in Robert's family for generations. Michael and Lisa were directing the movers, pointing to items and giving instructions. They didn't see me approach until I was right behind them. "What do you think you're doing?" I demanded. They both whirled around, faces pale with shock. "Mom!" Michael gasped. "You're supposed to be... we thought you were..." "Supposed to be where? Out of the way while you steal everything I own?" Lisa recovered first, her expression quickly shifting to concern. "Martha, you don't understand. We're just helping you downsize. You agreed to move to Sunny Pines, remember? We're preparing your things for the move." "I never agreed to any such thing. And how did you even get in? I changed the locks last month." Michael at least had the decency to look ashamed. We had a key made from the old one. Mom, this is for your own good. You've been so forgetful lately. Remember when you left the stove on?" "I have never left the stove on in my life," I said firmly, just as police sirens sounded in the distance. "And now you can explain to the police why you're removing property from a house that isn't yours." The color drained from Lisa's face. "You called the police? On your own son?" "I didn't," I said. "But apparently breaking into someone's house and taking their belongings is a crime, even if you're related to them." 2 police cars pulled up and officers approached cautiously. Mrs. Jenkins had come out of her house and was waving at them, pointing toward us. "What's going on here?" one officer asked. "These people are removing items from my home without my permission," I said clearly. "I've been staying with a friend, and they took advantage of my absence to break in and start emptying the house." "Mom, stop it," Michael hissed. "You're embarrassing yourself. Tell them the truth, that you're moving to assisted living, and we're helping you." The officer looked between us, clearly sensing the tension. "Ma'am, is this your son?" "Yes," I admitted, "but that doesn't give him the right to enter my home without permission and start removing my possessions." "We have power of attorney," Lisa blurted out, pulling a document from her purse. "She's not well. She has dementia and can't make decisions for herself anymore." I almost laughed. "I do not have dementia, and you certainly do not have power of attorney." The officer took the paper Lisa offered and examined it. "Ma'am, this document appears to give your son medical and financial power of attorney." Now I was truly shocked. I stepped forward and looked at the paper. There was my name and what appeared to be my signature, though it was clearly forged. "That is not my signature," I said firmly. "I never signed this document. It's a forgery." "She doesn't remember signing it," Michael said quickly. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. Her memory is failing." "Officer," Eleanor stepped forward, "I'm Eleanor Davis, Mrs. Wilson's friend and her legally designated trustee. She's been staying with me because she feared exactly this type of action from her son. We have documentation from her attorney showing the legal arrangements she has actually made." Eleanor handed the officer her copy of my real power of attorney documents, which clearly named her, not Michael. "These documents appear to contradict each other," the officer said, looking confused. "Because theirs is a forgery," I insisted. "Call this number." I pointed to Mr. Patterson's contact information on my legitimate documents. He's my attorney and can verify everything. The situation was turning into a standoff. The officer made some calls, including to Mr. Patterson, who confirmed that he was indeed my attorney and that the documents Eleanor had provided were the valid ones. "Until this is sorted out legally," The officer finally said. "We're going to have to ask that nothing be removed from the premises. Mr. Wilson, I suggest you and the movers leave now. And ma'am, do you have somewhere safe to stay tonight?" "She's staying with me," Eleanor said firmly. As the movers began to reluctantly return items to the house, I saw Michael and Lisa having a heated, whispered conversation. Then Michael approached me, his face a mask of concern. "Mom, this is all a big misunderstanding. We were just trying to help. Why don't you come home with us tonight? We can sort this all out in the morning." I looked at my son, this person I had raised and loved, now a stranger trying to manipulate me. "No, Michael. I'll be staying with Eleanor until I'm sure my home is secure from further break-ins. But Mom, enough, Michael. Go home, and don't come back until you're ready to tell me the truth about what you've been planning." As they finally drove away, with the police ensuring they left the premises, I felt a strange mix of victory and profound sadness. I had protected my home for now, but at what cost? The trust between mother and son had been shattered, perhaps beyond repair. What I didn't know then was that this confrontation was just the beginning. The worst, and the most surprising, was yet to come. The day after the moving truck incident, I decided it was time to go back to my house. Eleanor insisted on coming with me, concerned that Michael and Lisa might return. When we arrived, everything seemed normal from the outside, but as soon as I unlocked the front door, I knew something was wrong. The house had a different feel to it. Things were slightly out of place, drawers left partially open, pictures hanging crookedly. They'd been searching for something. "They've been through everything," I said, walking slowly from room to room. The movers had returned most of the furniture, but it wasn't arranged quite right. My bedroom had been thoroughly ransacked. Clothes tossed around, mattress askew, bedside tables emptied. What were they looking for? Eleanor wondered aloud. Then it hit me. The safe. In our master bedroom closet, hidden behind hanging clothes, was a small wall safe that Robert had installed years ago. We kept our most important documents there: birth certificates, our marriage license, Robert's will, and a few valuable pieces of jewelry that had been passed down through his family. I rushed to the closet, pushed aside the clothes, and saw immediately that the safe had been tampered with. There were scratch marks all around the keypad, and the metal was dented as if someone had tried to pry it open. "They couldn't get in," I said with relief. The code was our anniversary date, followed by the year we met, something only Robert and I knew. "We should check if it's still secure," Eleanor suggested. I nodded and carefully entered the code. The safe clicked open, revealing that everything was still inside. Or so I thought at first glance. But as I began to check more carefully, I realized that something was indeed missing. A sealed envelope that Robert had placed there just before he died. "It's gone," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "What is?" Eleanor asked, peering over my shoulder. "An envelope Robert left for me. He said not to open it unless I was in real trouble, that it contained something that would protect me if anything ever happened to him." Could it have fallen out? We searched the entire closet, moved the safe itself, looked under every piece of furniture, but the envelope was nowhere to be found. They must have figured out the code, I realized. The envelope was the only thing they took. As I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to remember what could have been in that envelope, the doorbell rang. Eleanor went to answer it while I continued searching the bedroom one more time. "Martha," Eleanor called, "you need to come here." When I walked into the living room, I found a police officer standing there with a serious expression. "Mrs. Wilson, I'm Officer Collins. I'm here because we received a call from Mercy Hospital. You missed an appointment at the psychiatric ward yesterday." "What? I don't have any such appointment." "According to the hospital, your son scheduled an involuntary psychiatric evaluation for you. He submitted paperwork claiming you've become paranoid and delusional, and potentially a danger to yourself." I felt like all the air had been sucked from the room. That's absurd. I'm perfectly fine. "I can see that, ma'am, but legally, I need to follow up on these types of reports." Eleanor stepped forward. "Officer, Martha's son and daughter-in-law have been trying to declare her incompetent so they can take her house and assets. We have documentation from her attorney." The officer looked uncomfortable. "I understand, but I still need to document that I've performed a welfare check. Would you mind answering a few questions, Mrs. Wilson?" As I answered his questions about the date, who was president, and other basic cognitive checks, my mind was racing. Michael and Lisa had escalated their plan. They had stolen Robert's mysterious envelope, and now they were trying to have me committed to a psychiatric ward. What lengths would they go to next? After Officer Collins left, satisfied that I was of sound mind, Eleanor and I sat in my kitchen trying to make sense of this new development. "They're getting desperate," Eleanor said, pouring us each a cup of tea. "Breaking into your house, trying to have you committed. These are serious crimes, Martha." "I know," I sighed. "But what I don't understand is why they're so fixated on getting me out of the way now. Michael has never shown interest in the house before. He and Lisa were always happy in their apartment. What's changed?" "Have they been having financial problems?" Eleanor asked. "Not that I know of. Michael's teaching job is secure, and Lisa seems to be doing well in real estate." "Well, something has lit a fire under them, and I think we need to find out what that envelope contained." I nodded, trying to remember exactly what Robert had told me. It had been right before he died, when the cancer had left him very weak. He had pressed the envelope into my hands one night and made me promise to put it in the safe. "Don't open it unless you're in real trouble, Martha," he had said. "It's insurance, a way to protect you if I'm not here." I had assumed it was some kind of financial document, maybe information about an account I didn't know about. But now I wondered if it was something else entirely, something valuable enough that Michael and Lisa would go to these lengths to get it. "I need to check something," I said suddenly, getting up from the table. I went to my home office and booted up my computer. Eleanor followed, watching as I logged into my email account and searched for messages from Robert from 5 years ago, around the time he died. "Here," I finally said, finding an email with the subject line, "In case of emergency." It was dated just 3 days before his death. "Martha, my love, if you're reading this email, you must be in some kind of trouble. I hope you never need this, but I've always believed in being prepared. The envelope in the safe contains information about something I've never told you. It wasn't to keep secrets from you, but to protect you. What you don't know, you can't be forced to reveal. If the envelope is ever taken from you, remember this. The truth is in the garden, beneath what you love most. I love you always, Robert." "The garden?" Eleanor asked, reading over my shoulder. "What does that mean?" "I think I know," I said slowly. Robert and I had built our garden together over decades. The centerpiece was a beautiful stone bird bath that he had given me for our 30th anniversary. I'd always loved watching the birds come to drink and bathe, and Robert had often said it was my favorite spot in the whole property. "Come with me," I said to Eleanor, heading for the back door. The garden was in full bloom, with roses and dahlias creating a riot of color. The stone bird bath stood in the center, surrounded by a circle of paving stones. "He must have hidden something beneath the bird bath," I said, approaching it. The heavy stone basin had always seemed firmly attached to its pedestal, but now I examined it, more carefully, looking for any sign that it could be moved. "Help me try to turn it," I asked Eleanor. Together we gripped the edge of the basin and tried rotating it. At first, nothing happened, but then we felt a slight give, and the basin began to turn clockwise. After a complete rotation, we heard a click, and the top section of the pedestal itself shifted slightly. "There's something inside the pedestal," I realized. We carefully lifted the basin off and set it aside, revealing that the top of the pedestal was actually a separate piece that could be removed. Inside was a waterproof container. My hands trembling, I opened the container and found another envelope, identical to the one that had been in the safe. I opened it and pulled out several documents, along with a small notebook. "What is it?" Eleanor asked. I don't know yet, I said, beginning to read. The first document was a letter from Robert, dated about 6 months before his death. My dearest Martha, if you're reading this, then someone has taken the decoy envelope from the safe, and you've remembered my clue about the garden. I'm sorry for the secrecy, but what I'm about to tell you could be dangerous if it fell into the wrong hands. Before I met you, I worked briefly for Wilson Investments, a firm run by my uncle, Gregory Wilson. I discovered that he was running a Ponzi scheme, defrauding investors of millions. When I threatened to expose him, he made me an offer. My silence in exchange for a substantial sum of money and his word that he would gradually return funds to the investors. I was young and afraid, and to my eternal shame, I took the deal. The money he gave me was what we used for the down payment on our house. I've lived with this guilt ever since. 2 months ago, I received a visit from Gregory's son, Victor. Uncle Gregory died recently, and Victor found documents revealing our arrangement. He threatened to expose me, to ruin my reputation posthumously, and potentially leave you destitute if the victims sued our estate. I paid him $50,000 to keep quiet, but I don't trust him to stay away. That's why I've created this insurance policy. The notebook contains all the details of Gregory's fraud, including names of other accomplices still alive who were much more involved than I was. There's also a flash drive with digital copies of documents proving everything. If Victor ever threatens you, this information is your protection. He won't risk exposure of the full extent of his father's crimes. I'm so sorry for keeping this from you all these years. I hope you can forgive me. All my love, Robert. I sat on the garden bench, stunned. Robert was being blackmailed, I whispered to Eleanor, who had read the letter over my shoulder. And now someone is blackmailing Michael and Lisa, Eleanor said grimly. That has to be it. This Victor person must have approached them after failing to find the evidence when Robert died. But how would Michael even know about any of this? Robert never told me, so I certainly never told Michael. Maybe Victor told him, as part of the pressure to get the documents. I continued looking through the contents of the waterproof container. There was indeed a small flash drive, along with a notebook filled with Robert's meticulous handwriting, names, dates, amounts, and detailed descriptions of how the Ponzi scheme had worked. There were also copies of old documents with Gregory Wilson's signature, bank statements, and what appeared to be threatening letters from Gregory to other people involved in the scheme. This is dynamite, Eleanor said. Robert was right to hide it so carefully. As we were examining the documents, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number, but I answered anyway. Hello? Mrs. Wilson? A man's voice asked. This is Dr. Mercer from Mercy Hospital. I'm calling because we have some concerns about your missed appointment yesterday. Your son has provided us with some concerning information about your mental state. And, Dr. Mercer, I interrupted, I did not make any appointment at Mercy Hospital. My son is trying to have me declared incompetent so he can take control of my assets. I have documentation from my attorney confirming my mental competence, which I'd be happy to have him send to you. There was a pause on the other end. I see. This is unusual. Perhaps it would be best if you came in voluntarily for an evaluation, just to clear things up. That won't be necessary, I said firmly. If you continue to pursue this matter based solely on my son's claims, my attorney will be in touch regarding harassment. I hung up, my hand shaking with anger. They're not giving up, I told Eleanor. They're still trying to have me committed. We need to talk to your lawyer, Eleanor said, and maybe the police. This is getting out of hand. Just then we heard a car pull up in front of the house. Looking out the window, I saw Michael getting out, alone. It's Michael, I said. Quick, put everything back in the container. We hurriedly replaced the documents and hid the container in Eleanor's large purse, just as the doorbell rang. I took a deep breath and went to answer it, Eleanor right behind me. Michael stood on the porch, looking haggard. His eyes were red, and he hadn't shaved in what looked like several days. "Mom," he said, his voice breaking, "can I please come in?" I need to talk to you." I hesitated, then stepped aside to let him enter. "Say what you need to say, Michael." He walked into the living room and sank onto the couch, putting his head in his hands. "I've made a terrible mistake. I'm so sorry." "Which mistake, exactly?" I asked coldly. "Breaking into my house? Trying to steal my furniture? Forging my signature? Or trying to have me committed to a psychiatric ward?" He looked up, his face crumpling. "All of it. I'm so sorry. You don't understand what we've been going through." "Then explain it to me," I said, sitting in the armchair across from him. Eleanor remained standing, her arms crossed. Michael took a deep, shuddering breath. "About 6 months ago, a man named Victor Wilson came to see us. He said he was Dad's cousin and that Dad had owed him a lot of money. He showed us documents proving Dad had been involved in some kind of financial fraud years ago, before I was born." "And you believed him without even asking me?" I demanded. "He had documents, Mom. Dad's signature. Details that seemed to check out. He said if we didn't pay him $200,000, he would go public with the information. It would ruin Dad's reputation, and we might lose everything if the victims sued." "So you decided to steal from me instead of talking to me." Michael's face flushed with shame. "We didn't have that kind of money. Lisa's real estate business has been struggling, and with my teacher's salary. Victor suggested that if you were declared incompetent, we could sell the house and use the money to pay him off." "And Lisa went along with this?" Michael hesitated. It was actually her idea to approach it this way. She thought if we could convince you to move to assisted living voluntarily, it would be easier. But when you refused, you decided to force me," I finished for him, "by lying to my doctor, forging documents, and attempting to have me committed against my will." "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I was desperate. Victor has been threatening us. He even came to my classroom at school last week, talking about how he could ruin everything we care about." "Where is Lisa now?" "She's at home. We had a huge fight after yesterday. She still thinks we should go through with the plan, that we've come too far to back out now. But I couldn't do it anymore. Not to you. Dad would be so ashamed of me." I studied my son's face, looking for any sign that this was yet another manipulation, but the misery and shame in his eyes seemed genuine. "Victor got the envelope from the safe, didn't he?" I asked. Michael looked surprised. "How did you know about that?" "Yes, he told us to look for an envelope in your safe. He said it contained evidence Dad had kept as insurance. Lisa figured out the code. She tried your anniversary date." "And you gave the envelope to Victor?" "Yes, yesterday. But he said it wasn't what he was looking for, that there must be more evidence hidden somewhere else. He's given us 3 days to find it, or he's going to the newspapers with what he has." I exchanged a glance with Eleanor, silently communicating. Should we tell Michael about what we'd found in the garden? Could we trust him now? "Michael," I said slowly, "if I were to tell you that I know where the real evidence is, what would you do with that information?" Hope flashed across his face. "You know where it is? Mom, we could use it to make Victor back off. We could protect Dad's memory. Or you could give it to Victor just like you gave him the envelope from the safe." His face fell. "I deserve that. I know I do. But Mom, I swear to you, I'm done with the lies. I should never have gone along with any of this. I was just so scared of what would happen if Victor went public." I took a deep breath. "Michael, there's something you need to understand. Your father was not a criminal. He made one mistake when he was very young, taking money to keep quiet about his uncle's fraud. But he didn't participate in the fraud itself." "How do you know that?" "Because Robert left me a letter explaining everything. Victor has been manipulating you, probably telling you a much worse version of what happened." Michael looked confused. "But the documents he showed us were likely selective or even forged. Victor is the son of the man who actually committed the fraud. He's trying to protect his own father's reputation by destroying your father's." Michael sat back, processing this. "So Dad wasn't... He didn't steal from people? No. His only crime was accepting money to keep quiet when he was young and afraid. He regretted it his entire life. I could see the relief wash over Michael's face, quickly followed by fresh shame. And I believed the worst about him without even checking, without even talking to you. Yes, you did, I said, not softening the blow. You believed a stranger over your own mother, and you were willing to have me locked away in a nursing home to solve your problems. Michael couldn't meet my eyes. I don't expect you to forgive me, but please believe me when I say I want to make this right. Tell me how I can fix this. I looked at Eleanor, who gave me a small nod. It was time to turn the tables on Victor Wilson. The next morning, Michael, Eleanor, and I met with Mr. Patterson in his office. I had brought the container from the garden, and we spread its contents across the large conference table. This is quite extraordinary, Mr. Patterson said, examining the documents. Based on what's here, Gregory Wilson's fraud was much larger than anyone realized at the time, and there are names of accomplices who went on to have prominent careers in finance. So it's valuable? Michael asked. Extremely, Mr. Patterson confirmed, both as evidence that could lead to criminal charges even after all these years, and as leverage against anyone named in these documents who doesn't want their involvement known. Including Victor Wilson, I added. Especially Victor Wilson, Mr. Patterson said, pointing to several entries in Robert's notebook. According to these notes, Victor wasn't just the innocent son who discovered his father's crimes. He was actively involved in helping hide the money when he was in his 20s. If these records are accurate, he could face serious charges himself. Michael looked stunned. So when he came to us claiming Dad was the criminal, he was projecting his own crimes onto Robert, I finished, and using you to try to recover the evidence that could implicate him. I've been such a fool, Michael whispered. Yes, you have, Mr. Patterson said bluntly, and what you and your wife attempted to do to your mother is not just reprehensible, it's criminal. Forgery, breaking and entering, attempted involuntary commitment under false pretenses. These are serious offenses. Michael hung his head. I know, and I'll accept whatever consequences come. But first, I want to help make this right. Victor is still threatening us, and now Mom, too. He called last night saying if we don't find the documents by tomorrow, he's going public with what he has. Then I think it's time we turn the tables on Mr. Wilson, Mr. Patterson said with a grim smile. He turned to me. Mrs. Wilson, are you willing to meet with Victor? Under controlled circumstances, of course. Absolutely, I said firmly. I want to look this man in the eye. Good. Here's what I propose. We invite Victor to a meeting, telling him we've found what he's looking for, but we'll have the meeting at my office with security present in the next room. We'll record everything, and I'll have a police detective I trust on standby. Won't he be suspicious? Eleanor asked. Perhaps, but his greed will likely overcome his caution. Men like Victor Wilson believe they're untouchable. What about Lisa? I asked, looking at Michael. Can she be trusted not to warn him? Michael hesitated. I don't think so. When I told her I was coming to see you yesterday, she was furious. She said I was throwing away our chance at financial security. I didn't tell her about the garden or the real documents. Then we need to make sure she doesn't find out about this meeting, Mr. Patterson said. Michael nodded, though I could see the pain in his eyes. It was becoming clear that his marriage might not survive this crisis. Mr. Patterson drafted an email to Victor, which Michael would send from his account. We've found what you're looking for. Meeting arranged at Patterson Law Offices tomorrow at 2 p.m. Come alone if you want the documents. As we were finalizing our plans, my phone rang. It was Mrs. Jenkins again. Martha, there's a woman at your house. She's pounding on the door and yelling. I think it's your daughter-in-law. My heart sank. We're on our way, I told her, then turned to the others. Lisa is at my house causing a scene. She must have followed me, Michael realized. She's been so paranoid lately, checking my phone, questioning where I go. We rushed to my house. Mr. Patterson following in his own car. As we pulled up, we could see Lisa on my front porch, still pounding on the door and shouting, "Martha Wilson, I know you're in there. You can't hide from me. Give me what's mine." When she saw our cars, she turned, her face contorted with rage. But what happened next shocked us all. Another car screeched to a halt at the curb, and a man jumped out. A tall, distinguished-looking man in his 60s with silver hair and an expensive suit. "Victor," Michael gasped. Victor Wilson stormed up the walkway, grabbing Lisa by the arm. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he hissed. "I told you to be discreet." "They're hiding something," Lisa cried. "Martha knows where the documents are. I'm sure of it." Victor looked up and saw us watching from our cars. For a moment, everyone froze in this strange tableau. Then Victor's face transformed into a cold, calculating smile. "Well," he said smoothly, "it seems we're all here now. Perhaps it's time we had an honest conversation, face to face." The tension in the air was electric as we all stood facing each other on my front lawn. Victor Wilson exuded a confident authority, his expensive suit and commanding presence, making him seem like someone used to getting his way. Lisa stood beside him, her expression a mix of defiance and nervousness. Michael remained by my side, along with Eleanor and Mr. Patterson. "Mrs. Wilson," Victor said, extending his hand as if we were meeting at a social event. "A pleasure to finally meet you. I'm Victor Wilson, a business associate of your late husband." I didn't take his hand. "You're no associate of Robert's. You're a blackmailer and a fraud." His smile didn't waver, but his eyes hardened. Direct, aren't we? I can see where Michael gets his straightforwardness. "Let's all go inside," I suggested, not wanting to continue this confrontation in view of the entire neighborhood, since you're so eager to talk. Victor nodded graciously, as if I'd invited him to tea. "That would be best. We have private matters to discuss." Once inside, we gathered in my living room. Victor took a seat in Robert's old armchair without being invited, a deliberate power move. Lisa perched on the edge of the sofa, looking increasingly uncomfortable as she glanced between Victor and Michael. "So," Victor began, "I understand you've been looking for some documents that belong to your husband, documents that concern my family." "They didn't belong to Robert," I countered. "They were evidence he gathered about your father's crimes, and apparently yours as well." Victor's smile tightened. "Mrs. Wilson, I think you're confused. Robert was involved in some unfortunate business dealings with my father years ago. All I'm trying to do is recover some sensitive financial records that rightfully belong to my family. By threatening my son and his wife, by trying to have me committed to a nursing home against my will?" Victor raised his eyebrows, looking at Michael and Lisa. "I never suggested anything of the sort. If Michael and Lisa chose extreme methods, that was their decision, not mine." Lisa shifted uncomfortably. Michael stepped forward, anger on his face. "That's a lie. You told us we needed to get control of Mom's assets to pay you off. You suggested the nursing home." "Did I?" Victor asked mildly. "I don't recall ever saying such a thing, and without any proof, it's just your word against mine. A man with a spotless reputation versus a desperate couple with financial troubles who've been caught trying to defraud an elderly woman." Mr. Patterson cleared his throat. "Mr. Wilson, I should inform you that I've been recording this conversation since we entered the house. Florida is a two-party consent state for recordings. But since Mrs. Wilson's security system has visible cameras and signs noting audio recording, consent is implied upon entering." For the first time, Victor's composure cracked slightly. His eyes darted around, noticing the small security cameras in the corners of the living room. "Well played," he said after a moment, "but a recording of this conversation proves nothing except that I denied their accusations." "Perhaps," I said, "but we have much more than just this conversation." I nodded to Eleanor, who placed the waterproof container on the coffee table between us. Victor's eyes locked onto it, a flash of recognition and alarm crossing his face before he controlled his expression. And what might that be? Everything, I said simply. Robert's complete records of your father's Ponzi scheme. Bank statements, correspondence, names of all the accomplices, including yours, Victor. Detailed notes on how you helped your father hide the money when the scheme was at risk of exposure. Evidence that could lead to criminal charges, even now. Victor stared at the container, his face now completely blank, which told me more than any expression could have. He was calculating, reassessing, trying to find a way out. "That's absurd," he finally said. "I was barely out of college when my father had his financial difficulties. I wasn't involved in his business." I opened the container and pulled out Robert's notebook, flipping to a page I had marked. According to Robert's notes, you personally helped transfer $2.3 million to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands in 1989. You used the identity of one of your father's elderly clients to open the accounts. That's identity theft and fraud at minimum. Victor's eyes narrowed. Those are lies. Robert was trying to protect himself by shifting blame. "We also have copies of signed documents," Mr. Patterson added. "Signatures that an expert would likely confirm as yours, Mr. Wilson." Lisa suddenly stood up. "This is ridiculous. You're just trying to intimidate us because you found out what we were planning." She turned to Victor. "They're bluffing. If they had real evidence, they would have gone to the police already." Victor gave her a look that would have frozen lava, and she immediately fell silent. "Mrs. Wilson," he said, his voice now dangerously soft, "let's be reasonable. Whatever Robert told you or wrote down was his perspective, colored by guilt over his own involvement. I'm prepared to be generous here. Name your price for those documents." "They're not for sale," I said firmly. "Everyone has a price," Victor insisted. "Is it money you want? Security for your future? I could arrange a very comfortable retirement for you." I leaned forward. "What I want is for you to leave my family alone, permanently." Victor sat back, studying me with new respect. "I see Robert chose his wife carefully. You're as stubborn as he was." He glanced at Michael and Lisa. "And what about them? Your son and daughter-in-law tried to have you committed, to steal your home. Surely you want some compensation for that betrayal." This was Victor's new angle, trying to drive a wedge between me and Michael, offering me revenge. "My relationship with my son is not your concern," I said coldly. "Isn't it?" Victor pressed. "I could testify about their plans, about the forged documents. They could face serious charges, but I could also help them if we come to an arrangement about those documents." Michael stepped forward. "Mom, don't listen to him. I'm ready to face whatever consequences come from what I did. You don't need to protect me." Victor laughed, a cold, hollow sound. How touching. The prodigal son returns. But is it sincere or just another manipulation? After all, he's had no problem lying to you so far. "That's enough," Mr. Patterson interrupted. "Mr. Wilson, here's what's going to happen. Mrs. Wilson has authorized me to inform you that she has no intention of turning these documents over to you. In fact, copies have already been securely stored in multiple locations." Victor's face hardened. "You're making a mistake." "Furthermore," Mr. Patterson continued, "she is willing to refrain from turning this evidence over to the authorities under one condition: that you cease all contact with her and her family immediately and permanently. And if I refuse, then by this time tomorrow, the FBI, the SEC, and every financial news outlet in the country will have copies of everything in this container." The room fell silent as Victor considered his options. I could almost see the calculations running behind his eyes. "You're bluffing," he finally said, but without conviction. In response, Mr. Patterson took out his phone and pulled up an email. "This is ready to send to my contact at the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. All it takes is one tap." Victor stared at the phone, then at the container, then at me. You'd really do this? Destroy your husband's reputation along with mine? Because make no mistake, if I go down for this, I'll make sure everyone knows Robert Wilson was complicit. Robert admitted his mistake in his letter, I said calmly. He took money to keep quiet when he was young and afraid. He regretted it his entire life. But he wasn't part of the scheme itself, and there's nothing in these documents that suggests he was. Your father was the mastermind. You were an active participant. Robert was just a young man who made one bad choice and spent the rest of his life trying to make up for it. Victor's facade finally cracked completely. You self-righteous bitch, he snarled. You have no idea what you're meddling in. My father built something great before the regulators and bureaucrats came after him. Robert was weak, a coward who— Careful, I cut him off. That's my husband you're talking about. Lisa, who had been watching this exchange with increasing alarm, suddenly turned to Victor. You told us Robert was a criminal. You said he helped steal millions from investors. You said we'd be implicated if it came out. Victor shot her a venomous look. Shut up, you stupid woman. Don't talk to her like that, Michael said, stepping protectively toward Lisa despite everything that had happened. Victor ignored him, focusing on me. Fine. Keep your precious evidence. But know this, you're making an enemy today. People who cross me tend to regret it. Is that a threat, Mr. Wilson? Mr. Patterson asked mildly, because threatening Mrs. Wilson in front of witnesses after everything else would be remarkably unwise. For a moment, I thought Victor might lose control completely. His face flushed with anger and his hands clenched into fists. But then, with visible effort, he composed himself. I'm simply stating a fact, he said, rising from the armchair. Business is business, nothing personal. Oh, but this is personal, I said, also standing. You threatened my family. You tried to destroy my husband's memory. You manipulated my son into betraying me. So let me be very clear. If you ever contact me or any member of my family again, if I even hear a rumor that you're spreading lies about Robert, I will not hesitate to release everything we have, and I mean everything. Victor and I stood face to face, two opponents in a chess match that had reached its conclusion. Finally, he gave a curt nod. It seems you've won this round, Mrs. Wilson. Enjoy your victory. It may be shorter than you think. Mr. Wilson, Mr. Patterson interjected. Before you go, there's one more thing. My client requires written confirmation of your agreement to cease all contact. You can't be serious. Completely serious. I've prepared a simple non-disclosure and non-contact agreement. Sign it now, or we walk away and I send this email. Victor's jaw clenched, but after a moment's hesitation, he took the document Mr. Patterson offered, scanned it quickly, and signed it with angry, slashing strokes. There, satisfied? Almost, Mr. Patterson said. There's also the matter of the envelope you took from Mrs. Wilson's safe. We'll need that returned. I don't have it with me. Then deliver it to my office by the end of business today, or the deal is off. Victor glared at him, then at me, then nodded curtly. Without another word, he strode out of the house, slamming the door behind him. As soon as he was gone, Lisa burst into tears. What have we done? She sobbed. He lied to us about everything. Michael went to her, putting an arm around her shoulders despite everything that had happened between them. It's going to be okay, he said, though he didn't sound convinced. I watched them, my heart a confusing mix of anger, hurt, and the lingering love of a mother for her child. What happens now? I asked Mr. Patterson. Now, he said, gathering up the signed agreement. We make sure Victor holds up his end of the bargain, and then you decide what you want to do about Michael and Lisa. I nodded, looking at my son and daughter-in-law. These two people who had been willing to lock me away to solve their problems, yet who now seemed so lost and frightened themselves. I think, I said slowly, that we all need some time to figure that out. 3 months have passed since that confrontation in my living room. 3 months of painful conversations, difficult decisions, and slow, cautious steps toward healing. True to our agreement, Victor Wilson returned the envelope he had taken from my safe, the decoy that Robert had planted. He hasn't contacted any of us since, though Mr. Patterson has kept a close eye on him through professional channels. Last I heard, Victor had moved to Arizona, perhaps deciding that putting some distance between us was wise. The most difficult part of this ordeal was deciding what to do about Michael and Lisa. The betrayal cut deep. My own son, willing to have me declared incompetent and locked away in a nursing home. Some days the anger still rises up, threatening to overwhelm me. But other days, I remember the little boy who used to run to me with skinned knees, looking for comfort. The teenager who defended me fiercely when someone made a thoughtless comment about single mothers. The young man who sat by my side through every one of Robert's cancer treatments, bringing me coffee and making sure I ate. People are complicated. They can be both loving and selfish, loyal and weak. My son is no exception. 2 weeks after our confrontation with Victor, Michael came to see me alone. He sat in my living room, hands clasped tightly together, and told me everything. How their financial struggles had been much worse than I knew. How Lisa's real estate business was failing. How they were drowning in debt. Victor's blackmail had seemed like the final blow, pushing them toward desperate measures. "None of that excuses what we did," Michael said, his voice breaking. "I've spent every day since thinking about how I could have hurt you so badly, how I could have betrayed your trust like that. I don't expect forgiveness, Mom. I just want you to know how sorry I am, how ashamed." I asked the question that had been haunting me. Would you really have gone through with it? Would you have had me committed against my will? Michael couldn't meet my eyes. "I don't know," he admitted. "I want to say no, that I would have come to my senses. But I was so scared, so desperate. I just don't know." His honesty, painful as it was, gave me some comfort. At least he wasn't trying to minimize what he'd done. As for Lisa, she and I have had our own difficult conversations. Unlike Michael, she didn't immediately accept responsibility for her actions. At first, she tried to blame everything on Victor's manipulation, on their financial stress, even on me for not being more understanding of their situation. "You've always had everything, Martha," she said during one tense meeting. "Your paid-off house, your comfortable retirement. You don't know what it's like to struggle." "I raised Michael alone after Robert died," I reminded her. "I worked 2 jobs to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table. Don't tell me I don't know a struggle." It took time, but eventually Lisa began to acknowledge her role in what happened. Whether her remorse is genuine or merely practical, understanding that her relationship with her husband depends on making peace with me, I'm still not entirely sure. Michael and Lisa have started marriage counseling, trying to rebuild their relationship on a more honest foundation. They've also begun financial counseling to address the debt that drove them to such desperate measures. I've kept my distance from their finances, believing they need to solve those problems themselves. However, I did connect them with a legitimate financial advisor who could help them develop a realistic plan. As for my relationship with them, we're taking small steps. Sunday dinners have cautiously resumed, though they feel different now, more formal, less relaxed. The easy trust that once existed has been damaged, perhaps irreparably. Eleanor has become my rock through all of this. She comes over almost every day, and we've started taking weekend trips together, small adventures that have brought joy back into my life. Last month, we took a painting class, something I've always wanted to try. My first attempt at a landscape hangs proudly in my hallway, not because it's good, it definitely isn't, but because it represents my new beginning. I've also made some practical changes. I updated all my security systems and changed the locks again, this time hiring professionals to do it. I added cameras that send alerts to my phone if there's any unusual activity. Not because I think Michael or Lisa would try something again, but because feeling secure in my own home is important to me now. The safe has new contents, copies of all my updated legal documents, emergency contact information, and a letter I've written to Michael, to be opened only after I'm gone. In it, I've tried to express both my enduring love for him and my hope that the painful lessons of this experience will make him a better person. Last week, Michael came by the house alone. He helped me plant new roses in the garden, working silently beside me in the afternoon sun. As we finished, he asked if I would consider going with him to family counseling. "I don't want to lose you, Mom," he said, dirt still on his hands. "I know I've broken your trust, and I know it might never be fully repaired, but I want to try. I need to try." I looked at my son, this flawed human person who had hurt me deeply, but who was also part of me, connected to me by bonds that run deeper than betrayal. "Okay," I said finally, "we can try." That evening, as I sat on my porch watching the sunset, I thought about Robert and the lengths he had gone to protect me, even after he was gone. I thought about the secrets we keep from those we love, sometimes with the best intentions. I thought about forgiveness, not as something owed, but as something freely given, when and if we're ready. The safe in my bedroom no longer holds secrets or burdens. Instead, it contains the practical necessities of a life well planned and the emotional legacy I hope to leave behind, one of resilience, of boundaries, but also of enduring love. I don't know what the future holds for my relationship with Michael and Lisa. Trust, once broken, is like a precious vase that's been shattered. It can be glued back together, but the cracks will always show. Yet I've decided to at least try the glue, to see if what we rebuild can still hold something of value. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. Not the blind, unquestioning peace of before, but a wiser, more vigilant peace, the kind that comes from surviving a storm and knowing you're stronger for it. I am Martha Wilson. I am 68 years old. I am a survivor. And my story isn't over yet. Life teaches us that trust, once broken, is never quite the same. But it also teaches us that people are complex, capable of both terrible betrayal and genuine remorse. The path to forgiveness isn't straight or easy, and sometimes it leads to a different destination than we expected. What matters most is protecting your dignity and independence while keeping your heart open to the possibility of healing. Sometimes the greatest strength is knowing when to set boundaries, when to walk away, and when to cautiously open the door to redemption. Did you like my story? I'd love to know which part resonated with you the most. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from. I'm always curious how far these stories travel. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more real-life stories. Your support through Super Thanks helps me create more content like this. Check out 2 more of my popular life stories on screen now. Until next time, with love and respect.